First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for saying I no longer trust my brother or his wife around my kid? Okay, so you'll need some context here first. I am a single father to a 5-year-old son and his mother isn't involved. She was incredibly manipulative and verbally/emotionally abusive. For a few reasons, the courts awarded me full custody of our kid. She was allowed visitation, but basically said, I get full custody or nothing at all, and hasn't made any attempt to contact our son for 3.5 years. To be honest, I prefer it this way. She's a very toxic person who has repeatedly demonstrated an unwillingness to change, and she runs with some people who don't want my son around. If she comes back and demonstrates a willingness to put effort to be better to our son, she can see him. But till then, I'm very on board with her staying away. I've found being a single parent difficult at times and have needed a lot of help/support. This help has often been provided by my older brother and sister-in-law. They've done things like taking me to appointments, cared for kiddo while I worked/went back to school, helped with the bills/groceries when I was on my butt financially, paid for kiddo to do activities I couldn't afford with his friends to keep him from being left out. They've honestly been an absolute lifeline for me, and I just want to establish off the bat that I am incredibly grateful for all they've done for me. During lockdown 3, brother and sister-in-law have been watching kiddo while I work. They're both working from home, and they have absolutely refused to let me pay them for it. Well, during this time, my son has been asking more and more questions about his mom, which I've done my best to answer in age-appropriate ways. He's also been getting upset about her not being around more and more. It really sprang out of nowhere. So I was confused until a few days ago when he said Auntie Laura kept telling him things about Mummy, and they were different to things I had told him. I asked what kind of things she said, and I'll spare you the details for the sake of character count. Can clarify in comments, but it was incredibly inappropriate stuff. I'm so angry about this. My kid is upset, and I'm in a very awkward position. My sister-in-law went behind my back. I confronted her and my brother about it, and they both got very defensive, saying I can't expect her to badmouth her friend, and I'm being unreasonable. I said that it's not unreasonable to want to protect my kid, and that they've demonstrated that I can't trust them around him. I've even stopped letting them watch him, and my neighbor's doing it instead. They're really upset with me. My brother called me an ungrateful a-hole, and my sister-in-law says she can't believe I'm being like this over one little thing after all they've done. Am I overreacting? Edit. Realizes I deleted a kind of important points for character count. My ex and sister-in-law were friends at secondary school and college, which is how my ex and I met. They're not as close as they used to be, but they're still casual friends. Edit 2. People said I should include this from the comments on the post, so here it is. My ex made a lot of accusations about me that were provable false during the trial, part of the reason she didn't get custody. This includes accusing me of being a serial cheater. I wasn't, and could prove I was in other places at times when she said I was with other people. Accusing me of causing an injury she got in a car accident I wasn't even present for, and saying that I was the one who was emotionally abusive. She told him that the reason his mom and I fell out was because I felt like she was very unkind to me, and Mommy felt like I had other girlfriends, hurt her, and was the unkind one. She didn't say any of the accusations were true, but she didn't say they weren't either. And obviously, a 5-year-old doesn't have the critical thinking skills to figure it out for himself. Not so much that she lied to herself, she just repeated my ex's lies. Now for the top comments. Not a-hole. Your ex was so horrible that the courts didn't give her any custody. Hard to badmouth such a person. Sister-in-law placed her need to talk up her friend above the needs of a child that was clearly becoming more upset and anxious the more she talked. You're doing what it takes to protect your child, Opie. Clearly, sister-in-law wants to protect someone else. And even if sister-in-law somehow thought the friend was different, she still hasn't seen her own child for nearly 4 years of her own volition. She's a horrible parent for that, at a minimum. I wouldn't trust either of them around my hypothetical child. Not a-hole. Tell your brother this. I am grateful for everything you have done for myself and my son, but gratitude is not the same as obligation. My only obligations are to my child, and that includes being obligated to not leave him alone with someone who lies to him about me and upsets him, no matter what they have done for us. Sister-in-law did not have to say anything about X, neither good nor bad. She could have said nothing, because it wasn't her place to talk about our relationship to my son, and the fact that she has gotten defensive and wants to act like this is no big deal, leads me to believe she would do it again. I'm sorry that it has come to this, but my son's well-being comes ahead of anyone else's feelings. Period. Edited to add, just wanted to throw it out there since this comment has gotten some attention, that I don't think it's probably necessary to never let your kids see his aunt and uncle again, and maybe stress that to your brother too. It sounds like he loves your son a lot, and it would be a shame for this to cause a bigger rift than it needs to. You can't set boundaries without cutting them out of your lives. No unsupervised visits would be totally reasonable at this point. Not the a-hole. Your sister-in-law and brother sound like are overriding your great parenting. The courts decided that you're a fit parent and your ex is not. They do not get to override that decision. Also, I would not be surprised if that's why they are so willing and ready to be in this kid's life. Is she feeding information about the son to the ex? I know she hasn't seen him because I'm sure the son would tell. Tinfoil hat theory. If she's really super toxic, could she be using all of this to build a case to get some sort of custody? I don't know if she's changed her mind and now wants to see her son. Saying that other people are the primary caregivers paying for stuff and activities could be a way to prove he isn't fit. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for not taking my son to my mother after I found out she has been going through my kid's phone? So, a bit of context. I, 36 female, have never been close to my mother. She was verbally and emotionally abusive, constantly disregarded my privacy and got mad at everything I did. When she found out I was a bi at the age of 17 by reading my messages, she kicked me out. I went no contact for quite a while until I had my son, now 15 male. It took some convincing from my sister and aunt, but I decided to let my mom see her grandson. I don't really talk to her, because I can't forgive everything she put me through. But she's a great grandmother, and my son and her get along very well. On to the story. I was working late, so I left my son to my mom and took off. When I came back to pick him up, I saw that woman going through my son's phone while he was upstairs watching TV. I started screaming and asking what she was doing. She said that she was parenting my own kid, and said that she was being responsible for making sure he doesn't end up like me. I take the phone away from her in an instant and take my son so we can leave. Later that night, after my son was sleeping, I called my mother, screaming at her and saying that she had no right to go through his private stuff, or to tell me how to mother my own child. She got angrier and said I was ungrateful and that she was only trying to help. However, I think I might also be the a-hole because I am refusing to take my son to my mother right now, and I don't know if that's the right decision. By the way, I did talk to my son about this one specific incident, and he also is okay with not going to his grandma. He just doesn't know the story behind me and my mom. Not an a-hole, but at 15, I think your son should know some of the background. He should know what she is like. Couldn't Opie's son also stay on his own instead of being watched? Not an a-hole. All I really needed to read was, she was verbally and emotionally abusive. If your mother was abusive to you, that was more than enough to deny her contact with her child. But you gave her a chance anyway. What she did shows she didn't change at all. It's best that you keep her away from your son. All of this. I know what my mother and aunts did to me as a kid, but it was only 3 to 4 years after we cut contact with them did my kids finally feel safe to tell my husband and I things that happened to them growing up with those evil women. I was angry, heartbroken, and felt so guilty. I wish I knew way earlier to stop it. If your parent was abusive to you, they definitely are to your kids when your back is turned. Not an a-hole. She violated his privacy. Does he know what she did? He needs to know if he doesn't. Yes, we talked, but I only mentioned her going through his phone. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for kidnapping my brother? I, 26 female, have a tense relationship with my parents. I would have gone no contact with them if it weren't for my little brother, Pete. Pete loves singing, to the great disapproval of our parents. They hate that Pete chose singing instead of more manly hobbies. Despite their disapproval, I always encouraged his passion. I even got him a vocal course for his birthday a couple years ago. After a huge argument, parents let him attend a course. So, to the AITA situation. For Valentine's Day, Brother School organized a love song competition. Students that wanted to take part had to submit a recording of themselves singing. Every video is then published on school's Facebook page. Pete decided to take part in the competition. He sang a Sally song from The Nightmare Before Christmas. And since my fiancé is a photographer and has his own studio, Pete asked for his help filming the video. Fiancé agreed. Pete came over, his part of our bubble, so to speak. Fiancé even helped him edit in some cool visual effects. Everything seemed to be fine, until yesterday. Pete showed up at my doorsteps in tears. I took him in, and after he calmed down, he told me what happened. From what I gathered, our parents saw the video of him singing on Facebook and absolutely blew up. He said that they were screaming like crazy, called him an embarrassment, and forbid him from attending any more singing lessons that he's been paying for from his own money. After they told him to get out of their sight, he gathered some essentials and walked out. Then he took a cab to my place. Pete asked to stay with me, and I naturally told him that he can stay as long as he wants. Our parents must have figured where Pete is when he didn't return in the evening because they called me. They were angry I helped with the video. Said they know he's here and were demanding to speak with him. I didn't know what to say, so I played dumb. Didn't deny nor confirm my brother being here. They threatened to call the police on me for kidnapping, and at that point, I hung up and have been ignoring their calls ever since. They must have contacted some of the family because I've been getting many texts with people telling me to bring my brother back home, that he's just a rebelling teenager, cussing me out, even threatening to call police. Pete is 17, will be 18 in 2 weeks. He doesn't want to go back to our parents. I need to stay calm for my brother's sake, but it's so hard with people threatening me with calling police for kidnapping. I tried talking to Pete, told him that he doesn't have to do anything he isn't comfortable with, but that maybe he should talk to our parents. He says maybe, but not yet. Right now, he hates them and everyone on their side. So Reddit, am I the a-hole for kidnapping my brother? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Get him call the police and let them know what's happening, given the fact that he's 2 weeks shy of being a legal adult. That way, when your parents report the kidnapping, the police will already have prior knowledge of what's happened. I'd also be expecting for the crap to hit the fan big time too. Get the police to go with your brother and some of his or your friends to pick up his belongings. Most importantly, his birth certificate, social security number, passport, and bank details. First thing Monday morning, take him to the bank. Close his account and withdraw his money, or do so now so your parents can take it. And open a new account at a different bank and lock down his credit so that no one can run up debts in his name. The reason I'm saying to ask for a police escort is so that they can't refuse him his legal documents and can't abuse him. Get him to speak to the guidance counselor at school for some advice. And I'd suggest as soon as he has all his belongings, get him to counseling and put his parents in timeout. Most importantly, call the police and report this now. I'm glad that he's got 2 people looking out for him, and I wish you all the best. This is a great advice. Thank you. It didn't even cross my mind to take some of the precautions you mentioned. Not an a-hole. He's 18 soon. From that moment, he is free to make his own decisions. I'm glad he has you in his life, but taking on the care of a teenager is very hard. I believe it is, but I'm committed to doing what's best for Pete. He has had it hard already. After reading your comments, I have to chime in. Do not wait to withdraw his money. Just because parents never touched his money doesn't mean they wouldn't do it in the future. They still have 14 days to steal it. As soon as Pete is legal, open a new account at another bank. Do not choose a bank where your parents have an account. There are enough helpful people in the banking business who would help your parents gain access to his account. Otherwise, top comment already said everything you should. I really don't want to wait, believe me, but it seems like there's no other option. Pete has a limit on his card to how much money he can transfer in 24 hours, so he's unable to empty his account all at once. He'll be able to separate his account from parents once he turns 18. Tomorrow, we'll be calling a bank to find out if there's a possibility to secure his money in any way. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for asking my daughter if she was imagining her symptoms? 2 years ago, my ex-wife and I were going through a divorce that was made tough by the fact that our son, then 15, was dying of a brain tumor. I noticed that my daughter, 16 female, has started eating a lot more during that time, always very late at night, but I was too occupied with dealing with my soon-to-be ex always yelling at me, saying I wasn't doing enough to be there for her emotionally, accusing me of abandonment and withholding affection from me, to realize that my daughter was also going to the bathroom to throw the food she ate up. After the dust from the divorce cleared up, I found out about my daughter's bulimia from my ex-wife. My daughter told me she felt like her mind at times compels her to feel like she needs more and more food. After the talk and time had passed with my daughter adjusting to her new normal, I thought that she wasn't throwing up anymore. However, in the past few months, my daughter had admitted to feeling stressed because her mother was crying every day because they were approaching what would have been her brother's 18th birthday. My ex has also been stressed about her underwater mortgage. Yesterday, my fiancé and I had driven up to her vacation home for our planned Valentine's Day staycation. I get a call from my ex-wife saying that my daughter has been suffering from heart palpitations and was feeling faint, so she was admitted to the hospital. A few hours later, my daughter called and talked to me about her symptoms over the phone, saying she felt she was having a heart attack and said that she had started binging and purging again recently. A lot of the symptoms she was talking about I thought could have also been caused by an uptick in negative emotions. My daughter was bulimic before the past couple of months, and she herself said a lot of her physical needs came from her mind first. My daughter then asked if I could come see her soon, and I reminded that I had planned this with my fiancé for a while now. My daughter sounded upset and said she really wanted me here, and I was suspicious that she subconsciously wanted to sabotage any plans I had because she was in an emotional roller coaster over her late brother's upcoming 18th birthday. I asked my daughter if she by any chance was imagining all her symptoms. I reminded her that she had admitted to needing to eat before realizing it was all in her head, and asked if this was another stunt her mind was pulling. My daughter got mad and said she literally nearly fainted and said she couldn't believe I thought she was faking. She then hung up on me. Later, my ex-wife said hospital recommended her to a bulimia treatment program, and doctors said she risked a cardiac arrest if she continued her habits. Am I the a-hole for being suspicious that my daughter was just jealous of my current happiness and trying to get attention for it? From the literature on eating disorders, I saw part of it was about attention. You refuse to believe your minor daughter said she was feeling ill, who has a diagnosed eating disorder. And when doctors did confirm she was risking cardiac arrest, you were asking if you were the a-hole? That you think it has to do with your happiness? Yes, you're the a-hole. Eating disorders are the most deadly mental illnesses due to the heart problems that they cause. And Opie asked if she was imagining her symptoms. Unbelievable. Opie, you're the a-hole. It's nice that the impending anniversary for your son's death did nothing to interfere with your romantic weekend getaway, not being there for your fragile daughter. You're the a-hole. This is where I couldn't believe Opie didn't even think about his son. How does that not affect him too? You're the a-hole. Big time. I would get banned if I said what I wanted to. Hope you enjoy a fake holiday while your child suffers in a hospital. Am I the a-hole for not letting my brother and sister-in-law see my daughter after they threw away her medicine? I have a 4-year-old daughter, Emma. I'm an alcoholic, but I've been sober for 2 years. And my brother was Emma's court-appointed guardian from when she was 15 months old to just before her 3rd birthday. I had to fight for almost a year to get her back. My brother and sister-in-law are still upset that I took Emma from them, and have called CPS on me numerous times and make it clear that they don't trust me to take care of my own kid. They love Emma and Emma loves them, so I try to take her to see them a couple times a month. A couple weeks ago, Emma caught the stomach flu from someone at her preschool. I'm in school full-time and had a midterm that day, so I asked my brother to watch her for a couple hours so I could take my test. They said they were happy to take her, so I brought her to their house that morning with her medicines, a schedule saying when she's supposed to take which medicine and the dosage, a bottle of Pedialyte and a few changes of clothes. I came to pick her up after the midterm, and half her medicines, her clothes, and her Pedialyte were gone. When I asked about it, they said they threw away all of her medicines and the Pedialyte because they were liquids, and they were already opened, so I could have put something in there to make her sick/sleep. Not that it helps much, but I never hurt my daughter or gave her anything that wasn't recommended by her pediatrician. They also said I shouldn't be giving her Tylenol and Motrin. Again, her doctor said it's fine, so they didn't buy her any Motrin. Then I asked about the nausea medicine, prescription, and they said they didn't think she needs prescription meds for the stomach flu. They also felt her clothes weren't good enough for her, so they gave it to their neighbor for their garage sale and bought her new clothes, meaning they most likely took her shopping when she was sick and should have been resting. I left with Emma and haven't spoken to them since, except to tell them they will not be allowed anywhere near my kid unsupervised. I'm working in Thanksgiving, so I was going to drop Emma off with my parents, so she could see my family. But I still don't want her to be around them without me, so I'm leaving her with her babysitter instead. Now my family is giving me a hard time for not letting my brother and sister-in-law see Emma, and are excusing what they did by saying they were just worried about her. Am I the a-hole for not letting my daughter see my brother and sister-in-law? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Your brother and sister-in-law are sabotaging your recovery and relationship with your child. I wouldn't be surprised to see them talk negatively about you and your history as she gets older. You may need some distance to feel safer and have the mental capacity to deal with them. They don't know this, but Em and I are moving across the country in February. I think the space will be good for us. A bit of advice: I would not give heads up. At all. I'll send them a postcard when we get there. They aren't worried about Emma. They are trying to sabotage your parenting efforts so they can regain custody of your daughter. It was lovely that they gave her a safe place to be when it was needed, but you've earned your daughter and deserve to be her mother without these people treating you this way. OP document this event of them throwing away her prescribed medicine. Names, dates, doctor's contact info, etc. Keep any text where they admit that and their other bizarre behavior that day. You may need it one day. I'm not a lawyer or caseworker or anything like that, but I wonder if it could be a good idea to call the doctor to get new scripts and ask them to make a note in the file stating that brother and sister-in-law disposed of the original dosage. If brother and sister-in-law try that CPS crap again, I would want that as evidence that they are acting vindictively and don't have Emma's best interest in mind, as evidenced by throwing out her prescription medications while under their care. You need to stand your ground here. They're constantly putting you in danger of losing your child by calling CPS on you. They threw away prescribed medication. They're acting as if Emma is their daughter and undermining your decisions as a parent. They need to be cut out of your and Emma's life immediately. Next story. Am I the a-hole for letting my son keep his twins' ashes? We used to have 3 kids, Jane the eldest and Castor and Pollux, twins. Castor died unexpectedly about 5 years ago, and so we chose to have him cremated. His urn was always in the common area of the house. Our daughter Jane, 24, was the first to move out a few years ago, whereas Pollux, almost 21, moved out more recently. When moving out, Pollux asked if he could take his twins' ashes with him. My wife and I agreed without hesitation because he was, in the family, the person who was the most impacted by Castor's death. Words cannot begin to describe how close they were. He didn't say a word for months when he died, and even years after his death, always sits down in front of the urn every day for at least an hour to think/meditate. Additionally, the boys always said and promised to each other that they would move out together and be roommates when they grow up. So we thought it would only be right to grant him his wish. Anyway, Jane visits us about once every 2 months. The first time she came after Pollux moved out, she didn't notice Castor's urn was missing. The second time she asked if we had moved the urn elsewhere, and we told her, expecting her to understand, that we let Pollux keep it as Castor was his twin, and they promised each other they would live together. She did not take it well and exploded on us, yelling that he has no right, etc. We told her she can always just visit her brother, who lives closer to her than us anyway and with whom she has a good relationship with, to see the urn, but she rebutted that it was symbolic and that this was unfair. She left the house quickly afterwards. Now, Jane is sometimes prone to outbursts, so we weren't too shocked and still hoped she would just get over it. But now Pollux is telling us she's been fighting with him over the phone and calling him some nasty things I won't repeat. Some of the family members have suggested we just take the urn back home with us if only to restore the peace. But I feel like this is also about what Castor would have wanted. He wasn't expecting to die, so he obviously didn't write a will. But I'm 100% sure he would have wanted to stay with his brother. Even Jane agrees, but he's too dead to care. Jane either needs counseling or she needs to check herself. At 24, she should know better than to throw a tantrum when she isn't happy with the decision you've made. It sounds to me like she either has unresolved trauma from her brother's death, and or lingering unspoken resentment about how she was treated as a child relative to her younger brothers. I say this with a genuine heart, but it sounds like your daughter needs therapy, and your son doesn't deserve more trauma by her inability to handle her feelings. Overall, it sounds like she ended up feeling left out of a twin thing that she's probably struggled with since they were born. She needs therapy. She's already in therapy, but for an unrelated issue. She was in a mutually toxic relationship with her ex, and she's been working on her impulsivity. It's just that I do feel she has a right to be somewhat upset about this. Saying he is too dead to care crossed a line by a mile. That is unacceptable. Your daughter probably feels left out as the non-twin, and with the three of you, parents and brother, making this decision without her input. He was her brother too, after all. It would probably have been kinder to discuss it as a family. However, you're his parents and get to make that decision regardless of anyone else. Why not give Jane some of Castor's remains? When my mother-in-law died, all her kids received some of her remains in a necklace. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for warning my dad's girlfriend about his relationship patterns which led to her dumping him? I'm 16 female and my 45-year-old dad has this habit of dating college-age women and dumping them after like 2 to 3 years, then complaining about how needy and clingy they were. It's been going on my entire life and it really annoys me. Like, I feel like if he doesn't want someone clingy, a woman in her early 20s willing to date a guy who could be her dad maybe isn't the best option. It's seriously like he's allergic to any woman over 23. I've made half-jokey comments before about how I think it's creepy he only dates women 24 and under, but apparently I need to mind my own business. Even though I live with him full-time, so the women he brings over kinda are my business, especially if he wants to complain to me about them when he dumps them for being clingy. Anyway, so about a week ago, he introduced his new girlfriend to me, and she's 21, but could easily pass for my age. Like she wouldn't be out of place in my high school. I don't know, it really bothered me in particular that day. So when my dad wasn't around, I told her that if she's looking for a long-term thing, she won't get it from my dad because he'll definitely dump her before she turns 24 like every single other woman he's ever dated. And then he'll call her a pathetic clingy mess behind her back. I didn't think she believed me, because at the time she laughed it off and said it was different with her. But I guess she thought about it, and she ended up dumping him yesterday and must have told my dad what I said, because now he's angry at me for interfering in his relationship. He also says he's hurt that I think of him that way, even though literally all I did was tell the truth. And I think if he doesn't want to be thought of that way, he should stop being like that. Now for the comments. You told the truth. If he's offended by it, perhaps he should change his behavior. I can't believe you told him the truth instead of lying because we're family. Also, your dad is a grade A creep OP. Jesus Christ. If I saw any of my friends dating someone that old, I would hold an intervention. I would ask him then to hurry up and get through his midlife crisis, so you won't have to hear him complain about dating 20s then. Bruh, if he's been in crisis for like 15 years, we have bigger problems. Frankly, your dad's dating patterns sound predatory. I'm pretty liberal about age gaps generally, but if you only date substantially younger people and break things off once they're a bit older, it suggests you like holding a certain amount of power over your partner. And that's a glaring red flag. You were right to warn her about that. Yeah, this isn't like he happens to have dated a couple of really young women. He literally only dates college-age women. And there's been like 7 or 8 of them, not counting the ones I never met because he didn't date them long enough. I wouldn't be shocked if his Tinder is set to only women aged 18 to 22. Next story. Am I the a-hole for leaving my mom's early when her whole family took Christmas photos? Me, 16 male, and my mom don't have much a good relationship. They had a bad divorce after my mom left my dad for some guy when I was 7, and I only saw her once every 6 months because she got married then buys with her new family. Since last year, she wanted us to start talking more and seeing each other. I'd finally met my 2 half-brothers who were 6 and 4, then her 2 other step-kids around same age as me. I'm only with her on weekends, and the last one they were doing Christmas photos they sent to the family. And I mean her husband's family and also my mom's. So like my grandparents, my aunts, cousins, etc. They had a photographer actually come. Everyone was dressed for it except me, and she told me it just wouldn't make sense if I'm in it since the pictures are also going to her husband's family side. But then I argued, well, our family side is getting pictures of his kids, so why does it matter? Like she said she wanted me to be part of their family when I started staying over since last year, but now they don't want me to include in their family photo? My mom told me it's not a big deal, and I just went upstairs while they did a thing. I don't know why, but it just made me really mad, but also sad. I didn't want to stay there for the weekend, so my dad came after sending him a text. My mom argued with him outside because it was only Friday, but I told her I didn't want to stay there if she doesn't want to include me in their family, and I'd rather go be with Dad. My mom is still mad about it. She says she didn't mean to treat me that way, but how I behaved after cutting out our time was mean, and that hurts her feelings. And I'm the a-hole for reacting that way basically. For me, it still hurts, so maybe that's why I don't see if I was wrong for cutting off our weekend short. Not day home. Your mother is a terrible parent. She cuts you out of the picture, you cut her time. Simple. I'm so sorry she did that to you, and for how she treats you in general. And it's not like Mom couldn't have included him for some pictures. Like, damn. Cold-blooded. Not day home, but your mom certainly is. I don't blame you if you never want to go back. She's made it pretty clear who she thinks of as her family. Thing is, I didn't even want to start seeing her in the first place. She wanted me to, so I gave it a chance. And after all these months of going to see them, now suddenly she doesn't want me included. Please protect yourself. I'm an adult in my 30s, and this would absolutely crush me. Your dad sounds awesome. He's your true family. You two should have a fun Christmas photo shoot and send those out to family. I haven't always had a good relationship with my family. When my dad died, they did family photos without me and I was an adult. Your dad sounds like a good guy. I'm sorry this happened. May I suggest having someone to talk to as when you're older? It's harder to do that, but it helps. I did therapy stuff as a kid, but mostly now just talk to my dad. He was cool about it when we left. We went to go eat, then had a whole talk we always have about how it's her and not me. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for demanding my parents spend the same amount of money they spend on my autistic brother every month? I, male 16, have an autistic brother, male 14, with lots of medical needs. We don't have a close relationship because of his behavior in general. And my parents both work high-paying jobs, have been focusing all their attention on him, which is sort of fine with me, by the way. Here's the problem. My parents were doing some calculating and looking at what they spend on my brother yearly, which was a lot. But they decided to increase their budget for him by dedicating about $400 a month to my brother. Thing is, my allowance is barely $100 a month. I found out and blew up at my parents and asked for equality, and to either split the money between me and my brother or make my allowance same as him. But they told me off explaining that my brother has medical needs and require doctor's appointments and medication that they need money for, while I'm perfectly healthy. I pointed out how unfair they have been, and how they were obviously playing favorites and causing me to resent my brother and driving a wedge between us here. But their argument that I should not hate my brother since the money goes to medication and whatnot, and not clothes and toys. After further arguing, my dad called me an overprivileged spoiled brat who had no right to demand anything from them, and that I should consider myself lucky I still get $100 allowance, when I'm perfectly capable to work if I don't like it so much. I'm now indefinitely grounded for demanding to be treated equally to my brother and pointing out their favoritism. You're the a-hole and entitled. Your parents owe you a shelter, food, clothes, and education. They don't owe you an allowance and luxuries. Your brother has medical needs. You have superficial wants. If you really want things to be equal with your brother, maybe you should take some of his medical issues so things could be fair all around. I completely agree. There is a huge difference between spending money on a kid's medical treatment and giving a kid an allowance for whatever BS they want to buy. He needs to get a job if he wants more. My son is close to his age. He gets $10 per week and must do his chores to get that. $100 per month allowance is a lot. He needs to show appreciation to his parents. I'm so sorry for you, Opie. It might be so difficult to have a cold heart. You don't care to not have much attention from your parents. Well, you would be totally entitled to share this feeling. But you were so upset to not have your $400 allowance a month. In what world do you live in? Don't you see that this is not an allowance for your brother but medical expenses? Tell me how much of the $400 your brother is spending for fun things. Pretty sure that your brother will be happy to do without going to the doctor regularly, but instead having the same life as yours. Be a good person, have some empathy for your family, and don't be a greedy person. Jeez, you are only 16 and you already place money over feelings. Need money? Get a job. By the way, you're the a-hole. Am I the a-hole for not paying for my niece's operation with my wedding fund? I, female 30, have an older brother, Thomas, 43. His first wife passed, leaving him with my niece, and he remarried 2 years later. My dad and uncle inherited 2 lands from my grandfather. Dad left his land after it was split for me and Thomas, but Thomas sold it without my knowledge and kept all the money for himself. I couldn't do anything about it because I barely had money for college, and because sister-in-law said if I tried to do anything about it, I'd never see my niece. But I went no contact and couldn't establish a relationship with my niece anyway, even though I used to take care of her when she was little. She's now 16. born with a health condition and had her first operation at the age of 1. I later inherited the other land my uncle had after he disowned Thomas. I sold it and spent money on necessities, and used the rest to fund my wedding soon. Thomas reached out recently and we spoke a few times. He kept mentioning my niece struggling with her health condition again. He asked if I wanted to meet her, but I wanted time. After a few more conversations, he said he needs help paying for her upcoming surgery and asked if I could help with money. He brought up uncle's land and the money I put aside for my wedding. I was shocked. He asked where he knew all that, and he said he's been talking to a mutual friend and he told him everything. This mutual friend said Thomas spent the money from the land on several expensive golfing trips and anniversary celebrations with his wife, and is now in debt struggling to pay for my niece's medical expenses. I said sorry, but there was nothing I can do to help. He kept trying to convince me that my wedding can wait and my niece should matter to me, reminding me that I'm the only family he got left, and I should consider helping him for my niece's sake, not his. I reminded him of what he did to me years ago, and how it left me to struggle for myself. I said he was lucky I didn't sue him for the money he owed me, but he said that this was his wife's idea, and he was stupid and regretted listening to her. Then said I could still sue them, but since they'll go to jail because they can't pay me back, then my niece becomes my responsibility. He said I could hate him all I want, but he's just asking for my niece. He pressured me to go see her, but I felt highly uncomfortable doing that. We had a heated argument after he tried to get my fiancé to postpone the wedding. I ended up telling him to leave, but he said it was okay, we'll talk again. But I said all I had to say. He had to let my friends know. They asked what's wrong with me prioritizing wedding over my niece. Thomas then emailed me saying I can't blame him for trying to help his kid, and that he knew I'm a better person than he is, and I will do this out of goodness of my heart. He said he'd pay me back with his wife's inheritance once her father passes, which he doesn't know when, but he hoped soon enough. I'm still dumbfounded by what he said. Thing is, I've always wanted a good wedding, and because I got stuck with student loans for so long, I still live in a small place, still haven't gone on trips I wanted, still haven't achieved most of what I wanted. I'm 30 and feel like life already passed me by. If I let Thomas get my wedding fund, then I'll have to start saving for my wedding. Now for the top comments. Not day home. Anyone who's harassing you about this is not your friend. It may be that he has given them a twisted version of his narrative and you can clear that up. But if they continue to harass you about delaying your wedding and giving your money to your brother for his child, then they are definitely not your friends. OP, listen to the above. Also, if you do change your mind about helping financially with your niece's surgery, ask for a copy of the bill and pay the hospital or treatment facility directly. Do not give your brother money, as he's untrustworthy. Also, make sure you get your brother and his wife to sign notarized statements stating that they owe you that money back, with interest, or you will never see it again. Funny the brother hasn't mentioned the money as a loan anywhere, except the father-in-law comment. He and his wife, fully expect the money as a righteous gift. The money stole from Opie should have been put aside for the medical needs they knew were coming. Not Day-Hole. He said that this was his wife's idea, and he was stupid and regretted listening to her. If him stealing your money was all his wife's idea and has regretted it since, why didn't he give you a call prior to being in debt and his daughter needing a surgery? Someone who is truly guilted would have got in contact sooner just to apologize. Don't give him the money believing that he's going to let you see your niece or have any sort of family dynamic with him. As soon as he'd have the money, he'd disappear again. Don't put yourself through such emotional and financial turmoil. If you have rented a food, venue, cake, etc., have passwords with the vendors in case he even tries to call them saying that the wedding has been postponed/cancelled. He's crossing lines by talking to your circle. OP, just say the money he stole from you is the money you already gave him. Not Day-Hole. He sold his land and squandered the money carelessly, knowing his daughter has a health condition that would require further medical treatment. You were cut off from seeing your niece for all these years, and now she's basically a stranger to you that just happens to share some DNA. If you had been part of her life all along, it would be different. As it stands, he was irresponsible in planning to care for his daughter's medical issues, and now he's manipulating you into giving up part of your inheritance and delay your wedding to cover for his failure. You're definitely not a Day-Hole. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not paying for my sick brother's chemo treatment after receiving a large inheritance from my grandfather? I am a 26-year-old woman. When my grandfather passed away, he wrote in his will that his inheritance would be divided amongst his wife and his oldest grandchild, me. He believed my brother would be way too young at the time of his death to inherit any money. He was a very wealthy man, but no money went to my parents, because frankly they did not have the best relationship with him, especially my mom, who is his daughter. Not that they needed it anyways. My parents have plenty of money already. I spent a lot of time with my grandpa, and we got along well. I'd say even parented me better than my parents ever could, and I was devastated when he died. When I got my share of the inheritance, I expected a lot of family who never talked to me before to suddenly start asking for favors. And they did, especially my parents for some reason. The final straw came when my mother asked me if I could pay for my brother's, his 15, chemo treatments, considering that I was technically rich now. I had never had a large amount of money, even with having wealthy parents. And as soon as I turned 18, they kicked me out and decided I needed to live on my own. My father gave me $1,700, and that was it, and they hardly talked to me. In fact, you could say they are the reason my grandfather gave me this money in the first place. He would always bring up how I seemed to be struggling. Finally, I thought of this, turned to my mother and basically said that my brother was not my responsibility, and that they have plenty of money to pay for his chemo treatments. Because now that I'm basically set for life, I would like to spend my money getting myself together and preparing for my own children. I told them I still loved him, but I just couldn't take on the responsibility of a child that I didn't even birth. Heck, I spent most of my childhood raising him when they didn't want to, and I was done being responsible for him. Of course, this didn't go over well with her, and she started yelling and cursing me out over the phone. I hung up, not wanting to hear another word of it. Over several days, I kept getting messages and calls, even Facebook posts of other family members calling me ungrateful, evil, and spoiled. Truthfully though, I knew in my heart that this was probably the best decision I could make for myself. I finally have the chance to be selfish. I didn't want to be used by my parents anymore. My brother will be fine as they have the money to do it themselves. They just want to once again throw that responsibility on me. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. This isn't even about affordability. As you mentioned, they can afford a treatment. They're just cheap and entitled and don't want to pay for it themselves. This isn't your issue. For anyone coming at you, remind them that your parents can more than afford a treatment. It's not your kid. Then cut ties as they have proven they aren't worth your time. Probably as they're part in the inheritance. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. A lot of these commenters must have missed the part that said my parents have plenty of money already. Some people's children. Shaking my damn head. Exactly this. And even if they don't, then it is still unfair to expect Opie to pay. Not the a-hole. When your grandfather passed away, his inheritance became yours. It doesn't matter one bit whether you inherited it, earned it, or won it in a lottery. It is your money, and you're not responsible for your brother's treatment. Your parents sound like massive a-holes for trying to bully you into it, especially as they can afford it themselves. You've done nothing wrong here. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for leaving my sister and her kids at the mall? I, 23 female, moved out of my parents' house 2 years ago because my sister, 32, and her husband, 33, have made a house uninhabitable if you aren't catering to his kids. They're loud, throw tantrums at a drop of a hat, and are very needy. I've asked to not be involved with their kids, as I have severe trauma and issues with spending long periods of time with especially small children that need to rely on adults for most things. My sister used to get on my back for not accepting her stepkids, when in reality I don't accept most children, as they cause panic attacks and worse when left in my care or presence. Recently, I've been trying to rekindle our relationship with obvious baby steps. I invited my sister out to the mall and asked that it just be us. She agreed, and we met up this Saturday. However, she brought her stepdaughter Cassandra, 7, and her stepson Caleb, 10. I tried to grin and bear it, but things got to a pretty unacceptable level for me pretty quickly. My sister kept picking up items, and then leaving me at the register with her kids to pay, with my card. Or she sent her kids up to me and telling them to ask Auntie to buy these for you. And I didn't want to look like an A, so I'd buy the items. She then left me alone with the kids at the food court while she stopped, but she told me she'd be right back. Ended up spending 45 minutes shopping around. When we finally met back up, I was fed up and told her I was leaving. She asked me to let her take the kids home so we could shop and hang out, but I was already over it. My mother and father are calling me an a-hole for leaving her alone with the kids, and her husband is calling me a hateful witch for not accepting his kids and not stepping up as their only aunt. He doesn't talk to his sisters, and I'm my sister's only sibling. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I do not mistreat these kids or ignore them. I send birthday/Christmas presents and birthday cards as often as my wallet allows. They know I exist, and I plan to handle my trauma, again baby steps, at a pace that's appropriate for me and be more involved eventually. Now for the comments. Not an a-hole. Your sister wasn't there to spend time with you. She was there to take advantage of you. At least now Opie can move on from this relationship knowing she tried. Not an a-hole. She didn't want to spend time with you. She wanted someone to pay for stuffs. I would go low contact on the whole family, to be honest. He doesn't talk to his sisters, and I'm my sister's only sibling. Join the rest of the family. Next story. Am I the a-hole for asking my fiancé to get a house of her own? So me 27 male and my fiancé 27 female are getting married in a year or two. We aren't in a rush. We've been talking about finances and stuff like that. And we've been having some honest conversations about the future, specifically what we do in case of a divorce. The main sticking point is the house. In the event of a divorce and she wants half the house, which I think is unreasonable given that I paid a mortgage. It's now paid off, and it's my name on the title deed. But I understand where she's coming from. If we broke up 10 years from now, then she'd have no major assets to speak of, which would be bad for her. I get that. So I suggested a solution. As we both make good money, and right now she can easily afford a down payment on a house of her own. She has good credit, and so it's going to be easy for her to get a mortgage with favorable terms. If the terms of the contract are good, she might be able to rent out the house as she pays off the mortgage, and pay the mortgage with rent money. This, in my eyes, is a win-win scenario. If we stay together, she gets an asset that she can sell or do whatever she wants with. And if we break up, she has a house. But she's having none of it, and tells me that I can't tell her how to spend her money. I mean, fair enough. So I asked her to sign a prenup, which basically said that in the event of a divorce, the house would be mine and all other assets of any would be split equitably. She's refusing to sign that as well, saying that I should just trust her. I do, but having a backup plan would make me feel much better and calm my nerves. I said that I'm not going to put myself in a situation where there's even a remote chance that I might lose the house that I've worked hard for. It's one of my red lines. So am I the a-hole? Also, we live together right now, and we split everything 50-50 including housework. We cook for each other on alternate days and we eat out for one day. Not the a-hole. She didn't put a dime into the house. Why should she expect to get half of it if you split up? Marriage law is weird. She wouldn't get half the house, but she would be entitled to half of the appreciation of the house. So if the house is worth $100,000 when we get married and if it's worth $600 when we split up, then I'd be on the hook for $250,000, which I might not have in cash. So I might have to sell the house to pay the $250,000. All that depends on how much the house appreciates. If you are already planning a divorce, then do not get married without a prenup. That would be a terrible financial decision. No one plans to get a divorce when they marry, just like no one plans to have a house fire or for a tornado to rip the roof off the house. Yet sometimes it happens, and if it does happen, it's dumb not to make sure that your assets are protected. Info. What would you do with the house? Why not let her buy half of your house or you win this equally? Or sell it and buy one together? If you're going to retain sole ownership, then she shouldn't pay anything for maintenance/renovation/upkeep. Is this your plan? Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay back my parents for sending me to a private school when I was 12/13? So, my 17 female parents used to be very strict growing up. When I first started secondary school, I used to be a rebellious child, which is something I have always admitted and apologized for. It is also a phase I have grown out of a pretty long time. Because of my actions, my parents decided it would be a good idea to send me to a strict private school which they think improved my behavior, but in all honesty, I think I've just grown up. My dad first brought this up a few years ago when I was 15, that I need to pay back $20,000 for the school fees. And at first, I genuinely thought he was joking. But now he's bringing it up again and again, especially now that I'm earning my own money. I would maybe understand them if I was still misbehaving, but I literally get straight A's and A+. Haven't had a detention in forever and never answer them back. I don't understand why my parents are asking me to pay this money when they're the ones that sent me there in the first place. I can't believe I'm already in debt by my own parents, and I haven't even started college yet. Would love some input if I'm overreacting, and how I should approach them when they bring it up again. Not today, home. My flip response is laughing in their face about expecting to be paid back, as a way to approach them bringing it up again. I guess reality would be no. I feel you made a choice to do that and I was a child then. You weren't in debt to them. Tell them to take it small claims. Not really. I hope he doesn't owe this money. Also, they sent her for being rebellious, which was probably normal behavior. Not today, home. And don't even think about paying anything. That was their choice. Until you were legally adult, they are responsible to feed and clothe you, provide safe roof over your head, and education. Not today, home. Your parents were the ones who chose to send you to the school. You didn't really have a choice. And while you were a rebellious child, but so are a lot of children. Talk to them and explain that since it was their idea to send you to the school, then it is on them to pay for it. As paying for things that they believe would better their child is, in a way, their jobs as parents.
Update. Wife of 6 years destroyed our marriage for ex-boyfriend. Original post. What a crazy train ride it has been. I'm 33 and currently going through a painful divorce and thought I should share my story to help process the numbness and loss I feel and evaluate how this train wreck occurred. Me and my wife were co-workers for a time 9 years ago. From the time we met, we were extremely attracted to each other, sparks flew, and we hit it off immediately. I dated around a good amount in my younger 20s, but there was something different with her that made me feel safe and happy. After several years of dating and living with each other, we decided to get married. I remember even at the time I proposed that it didn't feel right. We had an open relationship, mostly because of her wanting that lifestyle, and unfortunately went along for that ride. Never marry in a polyamorous relationship. Things definitely started shifting right after our marriage. With our open marriage, we set the boundary that we would only have fun with mutual friends and talk about agreements beforehand. Right before we bought our home, my wife admitted she spent a night with her ex-boyfriend and also later revealed there was no protection. I was devastated. That's where all the trust evaporated overnight. And even though I still loved her, I didn't feel respected anymore. I decided to put the house solely in my name. We bought the home when we were married, but this comes into play later in our divorce proceeding. I continued to progress in my career and being the breadwinner and thought my wife was happy. Slowly but surely the bedroom fund started to feel like a chore and could tell she was checking out. I should also mention my wife had a very high body count of men previous to our relationship. 2 years ago, right after the pandemic started, she pulled the rug from under me and let me know she wanted to break away from me, and she wasn't afraid providing for herself. She hired a spiritual coach and thought she could replicate that same amount of success right away. Fast forward to today, she is still struggling to launch her coaching business. Yo, being independent isn't so easy, right hun? Also doesn't feel very good with all the emasculation and treating me like garbage as I continued to financially support her. She deployed a lot of emotional manipulation to have me still provide and pay for her lifestyle. She convinced me to sleep in separate bedrooms. I did it to give her the space she said she needed. I really should have kicked her out of the house at that point. About a year ago, she reconnected with that ex-boyfriend she had the affair with. To add on to the misery I was already feeling, she decided to commit into a relationship with him even with us still married. Looking back, I feel completely disgusted with myself for not standing up for myself back then and continuing to allow it. She would often offer me affection and intimacy here and there to keep me ignorant of any of my dignity or self-respect, so I played along to earn any form of closeness with her. I was completely addicted and made her my world. The turning point was last spring after I took her to Hawaii for a week. It was my ultimate Hail Mary to win her back. We even did a couple's photo shoot professionally done and had a really great time together. However, I could tell she was still invested in her affair partner. Not even a day after we got back from the trip, she said she missed her affair partner. Again, I felt absolutely devastated that she would so easily cast away the time and energy we had just spent together. This is where I started to finally regain my dignity. I decided to play up to my image and try to walk away as unscathed as I could and divorce her. Not surprisingly, her and the boyfriend decided to move in together last summer. This is when I brought up to my wife that I wanted an uncontested divorce. She was ripe with feelings for her affair partner, so when I wrote out the stipulation that I'd receive the full equity on the house, my bank accounts, and retirement accounts, she agreed. I gave her a week to decide after another weekend of vacationing with her affair partner, and she signed the stipulation in front of a notary, and I filed it the same day. She ended up going out to the bar that night with her affair partner getting dolled up, and spending another intimate encounter with him, I guess in celebration. Yeah, I surely felt like a valued husband. 3 weeks after, my wife wasn't able to get housing with her affair partner as originally planned. Now understanding her predicament, she filed a motion with the court to dismiss our stipulation and go to mediation. Go figure. I then lawyered up and we had several hearings with the courts. My wife never hired an attorney. I believe she thought her spiritual leanings told her she didn't need any of that. Well, turns out she lost her case and tried filing an erroneous second motion with her newly hired attorneys and lost that too a few weeks ago. Now she's filed an objection to be heard by the judge. My lawyers are very confident the objection will also be denied, and the final divorce papers can then be signed. I've racked up about $10,000 of legal fees, but my wife also has a lot of fees too, and may even be able to ask for my fees to be paid if I win. But I will most likely elect to pay my own anyway. Edit. Also, I should add in the second motion she filed with her attorneys that she made up lies about me coercing and lying to her. Things like I told her to not hire a lawyer because it was too expensive. The commissioner saw right through that BS and denied her, and hoped the judge does too. When my lawyer read through that motion with me, he said there is no chance at reconciliation. Also, the hearing before the judge just got scheduled for April 5th. The finish line is so close now. Writing this all out, it seems almost too absurd to be true. I'm trying to survive the present the best I can, staying focused in my career and trying to enjoy playing piano and my other hobbies to not think about this. It doesn't help that my wife gives me glimpses of wanting me back, but the past is just too painful for reconciliation. I know I can find another partner that loves me and respects me, but for the present moment I feel paralyzed and heartbroken over this journey. Ultimately, I just want to move on with my life, and maybe I'll laugh at it all looking back one day. The universe has an interesting way of unfolding. Hope that karma works as designed. Also, any suggestions on getting her out of the home? I feel like I can't kick her out legally unless we're officially divorced. She has mentioned to me many times she fears of me kicking her out. At the same time, she tells me she has other living arrangements planned, but nothing has ever materialized. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Yes, you will find someone who loves you once this is done. She is a manipulator. Once she loses in front of the judge and the reality of what happens sinks in, she will try to manipulate you again. Stay strong and go after her to pay your fees. 10K for the hurt she has caused you is nothing. Stay strong and remember, you took her to Hawaii, and less than one day back, she yearns for her affair partner. Tell her the spirits say she will get hers in the near future. Best of luck. Thanks. Yeah, I definitely let her manipulate me, no question. She is also a narcissist, so she's going to be angry if the judge decides to have her pay up. At least I know what's been missing in order to enjoy a fulfilling relationship, but will take a lot of work on myself first. Breaking away from the codependency is not easy. By the way, if the judge grants you attorney fees, take it. She has caused you such heartache. You owe her nothing. My advice, under no circumstances should you take her back. You must go no contact with her. Expunge her from your life. Also, never ever agree to an open relationship again. Good luck to you, and take what you have learned from your marriage to make a better life for yourself. Lesson learned seemed fun at the time, but no better than most the pain an open relationship can cause. I must say that I find all these spiritual coaches and books BS. Spirituality cannot be found in paper or some guru, but around you, in experiences, and in the most unexpected of places. As far as suggesting something to you, nope, you are doing everything right, and you must continue doing so. All the best. Yes, honestly, putting the affair and emotional mistreatment aside, I can't even bear thinking about integrating into her spirituality world. She's mentioned entity attachments to me to explain why she doesn't feel safe. Really, she's just bitter that things aren't going the way she thought they would. Now for the update. Hard to believe it's been 6 months already. I'm happy to report that I am officially divorced and starting to live my best life now. I still have moments of pain and loneliness hit me in waves thinking about the old versions of what we used to be, but overall, I'm starting to move past it. One of the realizations that has really helped me is truly accepting she didn't care about me the way I thought she did. She had her own level of delusions, but mine was being stuck on the idea that the chemistry and bond we had early on in the relationship was love. How could she have loved and truly cared with the level of disrespect given to me? I gave her everything financially, let her have full control of what to do in the home, yet she resents me for doing just that. And the fact I took her on vacation to Hawaii and she tricks me into thinking we were reconnecting, just to be with her ex a few days after the trip. Screw that. Back in April, we were supposed to have our hearing with the judge on her objection to the stipulation, and her lawyers ended up delaying it till June. At that point, I just wanted to move on even though I had an unlosable case, so ended up settling the case and giving her alimony for just a year and $15,000 cash settlement. I kept the house, bank accounts, retirement accounts, which is about $300,000 in value. It was also stipulated she had to move out of the home once the divorce finalized in June. A part of me kind of wishes she would have left with absolutely nothing for what she did, but it is nice that it's completely over now though, and ended much better than the typical cash and prizes these women get away with. She ended up going back to the same ex-boyfriend, no surprises. That eats away at me sometimes, but then I also just feel so disgusted by her. Her ex has no job, no capability to earn money anytime soon since he had a severe spinal injury. She told me a few months back that she had some spiritual readings that we weren't meant to be with each other anymore because there's too much pain on my side. Right. I also got a new finance job in June that pushes me up to 6 figures, and she absolutely hated it when I told her that. One of the last things I told her was I hope she feels good about throwing it all away. Once the alimony dries up and she sees her route of being a spiritual life coach won't work out, we'll see how happy she actually is. If she comes knocking down my door, I most certainly won't be accepting her back ever. I'm deserving of a beautiful, loving relationship, and this is the lesson I needed to learn to appreciate what a good, nurturing relationship actually can be. Hope my story is helpful to anyone that feels like they're struggling breaking away. If she's coming back and knock on your door expecting to be accommodated, you need just to say that unfortunately you cannot be together because it's written in the stars. Haha, I should tell her that. My higher self says, "You're not my twin flame, never was." That is superb. Tell her you had readings with a real spiritual advisor. And she said that there was too much pain on her side for reconciliation, and that it's just not in the stars for you to take her back. Because you are right, she will be back. Get a doorbell cam and never let her into your house, not even for a chat. The trash stays outside. Already done. Sunk cost fallacy. That's all it is. What you are missing is what you had invested in the relationship. You'll see this, and if you're a finance guy, it's no different than any other investment loss. At first you missed the money you lost, then you beat yourself up because, in hindsight, it was a dumb move. We all go through it. Just remember, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Absolutely sunk cost fallacy in play here. I had feelings of breaking away much earlier when she cheated on me the first time. I'm a slow learner, but I learn eventually. Now for the last story. My boyfriend is mourning the girl he cheated on me with. I have never been this depressed in my life. My 23 female boyfriend, 23 male, has been cheating on me for the last 5 years. I've always caught him, and he would be remorseful and do everything to try and make it work, but something changed this year and I guess he met someone he really likes. It started off as friends, but little did I know he was in the middle of setting the grounds for a relationship with her. I've noticed that lately he has been less emotionally available with me, and I attributed that to me doing something wrong. I often lean on him for support when I have issues, and he doesn't like that. So I've been working to try and learn to keep that stuff to myself and not burden him with it anymore. So I guess that's why it didn't click right then and there. Anyway, I found their conversation on his phone, and when I tell you my heart broke, it's an understatement. I saw the man I started dating 5 years ago in those texts. A man who is excited about this person, interested in their life and passions, sharing deep thoughts with that person, taking initiative to plan dates, and rushing to help out when anything is wrong. What broke my heart is that I've been searching for this person for months now, and I believed he didn't exist anymore. That hurt, but it's so much worse knowing he's still the same person, just not with me. Anyway, the story gets worse. So, when I confronted him about the texts, he didn't want to deal with it. He wanted to break up with me. That's new. He usually wants to work it out. Weird. So, I tell him since he doesn't want to explain, I'll go talk to the affair partner. This man freaked the heck out and was suddenly open to talking about it with me, as long as I don't message affair partner. I tell him that he needs to call her and tell her right now, or I'm going to contact her myself. He ends up calling her, and she's angry of course and wants nothing to do with him. That's the point where he becomes devastated. He's all of a sudden crying and hating me for making him do this. Imagine finding out your partner of 5 years cheated, and is only upset that their relationship with the affair partner is over. The worst part is that I begged him to stay and try to work it out, but he's so angry at me that he says he doesn't want anything to do with me. How am I the bad guy here? Or was making him tell affair partner taking things too far? My self-esteem is in hell right now. Today, I asked him one more time if he wants to work it out. He said no. I packed my things and left while he was in the shower. When he noticed, he called me and started saying, "I thought you wanted to work it out. WTF. I have no idea what to think and why it took me leaving for him to suddenly care about me. I'm so sad. Now for the comments. Why are you staying or trying to make things work? You aren't his first choice. Seek therapy and realize you deserve better. I agree, I need therapy after all this. I really think you misunderstand. You don't need therapy after this. That is not what anybody is telling you. The therapy would be for figuring out why you are responding to this sort of treatment by pursuing this horrible person. People often have traumatic events occur with no need for therapy. It's only these maladaptive behaviors that cause them to seek things harmful to them that would be reason to seek therapy. So sorry this happened to you, but I have to ask, he's been cheating on you for 5 years. Why are you still trying to work it out? You need to get into therapy. Just because he's desired by other females doesn't make him a good person or mate. You're trying to fix this guy, and it's just not going to work. He's playing you for the steady home life and emotional, physical intimacy when he feels like it. Run away from this guy and speak with a therapist to see if you have codependency issues. Good luck. You're right, I feel like I am codependent. I am honestly afraid of life without him. You're 23. You really want to live the next 50 to 60 years dealing with this nonsense. Please get into a therapist and find your self-worth. If you act like you have no value, people like your boyfriend will treat you like you're worthless. I'm starting to see that now. I definitely need therapy, lol.